It's always difficult to make a presentation after a journalist, because sometimes they have much greater insights. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to be here today. When I accepted this invitation, I knew that I would be facing a tough audience discussing the future of Zimbabwe. An audience that is informed, that is committed and determined to see Zimbabwe realize its full potential. You know our people and their enormous capacity. You know our enormous reserves of natural resources and their potential. You know Zimbabwe and what it could be, what it should be. Naturally, I share your belief in the nation and in our society. Just as I share your frustrations at the slow pace of reform and progress within our society, but the pace that we are achieving is realistic, considering where we are coming from. Today, 18 months since the formation of the inclusive government, it is easy to forget the madness of the previous decade. It is easy within the context of frustrated potential to forget exactly what was done to our country, its people, and its enormous prospects. To forget the point from which this inclusive government began to rebuild, restore, and rejuvenate our economy in February 2009. For more than 10 years prior to this, public policy was dictated by partisan survival interests. Growth was substituted for looting. Security was replaced by oppression. Inflation destroyed people's pensions, savings, and lives. This range of misguided policies was designed to achieve only one thing: to keep the previous regime in power, despite the cost to the people, to the economy, and to the nation. Despite this onslaught, the people maintained their belief in the power of peaceful democratic change, and in March 2008, they voted in favor of freedom, sanity, and liberation. However, in the face of the refusal by incumbents to respect the will of the people, we, the victors, were forced to make a deal with those who had been rejected by the majority of Zimbabweans. This was not an easy decision, but we accepted it as it represented a genuine opportunity to begin the transformation to democracy. We chose progress over violence, polarization, decline, and decay. And the prize for this choice was to partner with our former opponents in trying to rebuild our shattered nation and its economy. I often say, Mr. Chairman, that the acrimony and the polarization between myself and President Mugabe is legendary. No one would have expected me and President Mugabe to sit in the same room, talk and eat, and converse as human beings. We were sworn enemies. This is the reality of the political situation of Zimbabwe today. This is the daily reality of the politics of compromise and conciliation. And the other reality, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are making progress. Zimbabwe is moving forward. From the darkness of madness and self-destruction to a new dawn of a new Zimbabwe. This progress is tangible. Yes, it is slow, but it is there. We have health workers and medicines in our hospitals, teachers and books in our schools, food in our supermarkets and granaries, water in our taps and fuel in our petrol stations. We have a dependable and stable multi-currency regime, a single-digit inflation, and we have an expected growth this year of 7%. Does this mean that the madness of previous years has been completely eradicated? No. Because we are in a coalition government with those who do not share a common vision of the future, it is difficult. The failed policies of the past continue to haunt us. Disdain for the rule of law and property rights continue to undermine our image as a safe investment destination. We are working on a land audit as agreed in the Global Political Agreement to bring a closure to the trauma of the fast-track resettlement program, although not reversing it, which distorted our property rights regime. We continue to fight for the respect of the property rights in all sectors of our economy to encourage long-term land-based investments. We want to move away from land distribution to land productivity. And you can't have land productivity unless you put some value on the land. And you can't have investment on the land unless you create the property rights that are necessary for that investment to take place. This is the reality of our situation. But the other reality is that we are using our position in government to mitigate these failed policies of the past, to reverse them, and to continue to fight to restore sanity and to transform our society. The indigenization regulations were introduced as a policy to replicate the looting and chaos we saw on our farms. An erstwhile noble land reform program supported by all progressive Zimbabweans was turned into a circus. We know this. No country in the world would not prioritize the empowerment of the majority of its citizens. We understand what the proponents of indigenization regulations desire. Since January, we have done a lot to ensure that these regulations are not an avenue of expropriation, and we have sought to make them more palatable to our citizens and to the investing public. As I speak, secretarial committees have started to look at the secretarial minimum thresholds, which I believe will deal with some of the fears and concerns raised by both local and foreign investors. And we will not rest until we have ensured that these regulations represent true, broad-based empowerment for our people and our nation in partnership with like-minded investors of any color, creed, or nationality. We have a lot of potential in various sectors, particularly in tobacco, where harvest has doubled 120,000 tons. This represents one of the most successful growth in tobacco output in over a decade. And this is why I wish to express our concern with the guidelines that the World Health Organization's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control wishes to adopt in November this year. I hope that the convention will strike a workable balance between compelling health considerations and the viability concerns of the global tobacco industry. We have also vast untapped mineral resources, from natural gas to diamonds, platinum. While these diamonds are not an El Dorado as most people expected them to be, our potential in platinum, coal, gold, and other minerals, if fully exploited, will contribute significantly to our recovery. The inclusive government, in order to create an environment conducive for investment, has embarked on investments in infrastructure. We are going to be building a 1,200-kilometer road from Beitbridge to Chirundu, and other major roads are under rehabilitation. Negotiations are underway for the rehabilitation of our rail infrastructure. In the energy sector, I'm glad I've got the Minister of Energy here. He'll be able to give you full details. We are looking at construction of new power plants that will see us being self-sufficient in our energy requirements within the next 3 years. In the tourism sector, we are looking at implementing the Victoria Falls Master Plan that will transform the face of tourism in that area. Ladies and gentlemen, in line with talking about the reality of the Zimbabwean government, let me take this opportunity to talk to you about our relations with the international community. Around 1998-1999, our country had stopped servicing its external debt which seriously affected our relationship with the multilateral financial institutions and other creditor countries. This development has militated against us securing loans and lines of credit. I'm aware, and so is the rest of the world, that between 2000 and 2008, there were serious human rights abuses, including electoral violence, disrespect of people's property rights, selective application of the law, suppression of the freedom of expression, association, and movement and assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, in September 2008, the main political parties in our country signed the Global Political Agreement, committing ourselves to moving the country forward and to addressing almost, if not most, of the challenges alluded to above. And we all look forward to a positive re-engagement with the international community. We recognize the role played by our international partners in the area of humanitarian assistance and development, of long-term economic partnerships. Thus, we recognize the value of international partnerships without limitations of geography, be it our friends in the East, West, North, and South. Ladies and gentlemen, all I want for all Zimbabweans is honest, transparent, and respectful partnerships in economic, social, and political development. In this respect, I am extremely grateful for the leadership that SADC has shown in its quest to find a lasting solution to the Zimbabwean crisis by prescribing an exit strategy from the current transitional arrangement, which strategy includes a roadmap to a free and fair election. I am equally determined to build a level playing field such that all Zimbabweans can determine and decide their own government and their own future. There is skepticism on the role of the security forces in undermining the will of the people. We respect our security forces, and we hope that in line with the GPA, they will respect the rule of law, the GPA itself, and the Constitution of Zimbabwe. Discussions are taking place to build confidence across the barriers of yesteryear. We also need to transform the state media into becoming a true public media, compiling a new transparent voters' roll, introducing progressive electoral laws. We hope these reforms, combined with the new constitution, will pave way for an election that will respect the will of the people after the expiry of the current term of the inclusive government. This will not be easy, but with the help of South Africa and SADC and the rest of the international community, it is possible. At the same time, despite the challenges we face, we need committed investment partners to join us in unlocking Zimbabwe's potential. Honest, transparent, respectful partnerships are what the people of Zimbabwe need, what the people of Zimbabwe demand, and what the people of Zimbabwe deserve. I understand that as an investment destination, we are competing with over 109 other countries. Therefore, we must ensure that we emulate the best international norms and practices in how we attract that investment. In quest to achieve this, I look forward to working with you, and I pledge my time, my energies, and my commitment to ensure that we build a new democratic, prosperous, and peaceful Zimbabwe. This is my promise for real change for a new Zimbabwe. I thank you.